And here we are at Chapter 11, Mr. Grimm's School for Bad Brownies. Up the stairs went the three, treading very quietly indeed, hoping that none of the stairs would creak or crack. The brownies crowded round the door at the bottom of the stairs, holding their breath and watching. Up, 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 and there was the landing at last. Now for the door on the left. They saw the handle. They tiptoed to it, and Peter turned the handle. Would it be locked? No, it was not. They peeped inside. Yes, this was the storeroom, and stacks of books and pencils, rulers, ink bottles, old desks, all kinds of things were there. "Can't see our toys," whispered Pixie. "Or my wand. Let's look in all of the drawers and all of the cupboards." And so they began to pull open the drawers and hunt in them, and they were pulling open the cupboard doors and peering in at the shelves, but they could find nothing more exciting than books and pens and erasers. And then Pixie gave a soft cry. "Look, look here," he said. "Here they are." The others ran quickly over to him. He had opened a big chest, and there, lying quietly in the top of it, their wings vanished, lay all of the toys that they had lost. Yes, Rosebud was there, and Peter's engine, and the top, and the soldiers, everything. But wait, not quite everything. "I can't see my wand anywhere," said Pixie, hunting desperately. "Where is it?" They hunted all through the chest, but there didn't seem to be any wand there. They looked in despair at one another. They simply must find Pixie's wand. "I'm glad we found the toys," whispered Pixie, "but it's dreadful that I can't find my wand. It's got a lot of magic in it, you know. I wouldn't want Mr. Grimm to use that." Then the children heard a noise that froze them to the floor. Footsteps. Footsteps coming slowly and heavily up the stairs. Not light, quick brownie steps, but slow, ponderous ones. Would the footsteps come to the storeroom? In a panic, the children and Pixie squeezed themselves into a cupboard, not having time to put away the toys that they had pulled out of the chest. The door opened, and somebody walked in. The children hardly dared to breathe, and Pixie almost choked, and then a voice spoke. "Someone has been here. Someone has tried to steal the toys, and that someone is here still. Come out now." The children didn't move. They were much too scared to do a thing. And then poor Pixie choked. He choked again and then coughed loudly. Footsteps marched to the cupboard, and the door was flung wide open. And there stood Mr. Grimm, exactly like his name. He was a big, burly brownie with a tremendous beard falling to the floor. He had pointed ears and shaggy eyebrows that almost hid his eyes. "Huh!" he said in a booming voice. "So the someone is not one person, but three." Peter, Molly, and Pixie came out, poor Pixie still coughing away. Mr. Grimm took them each firmly and sat them down on the window seat. "And now will you kindly tell me why you came to steal my toys?" he said. "How did you know they were there, and who told you about them?" "They're not your toys, sir," Peter said at last in a rather trembling voice. "They're ours. We let them grow wings yesterday by using growing ointment on them, and they flew away. We came to fetch them." "A very likely story indeed," said Mr. Grimm scornfully. "And how did you come here?" "Up the stairs," said Molly. Mr. Grimm frowned a fierce frown. "Don't be silly," he said. "I mean, how did you arrive here? By bus or train? And how did you even get into the grounds?" Pixie gave the others a sharp nudge. Molly had just been going to say that they had come in their wishing chair, but then she shut her mouth tightly. Of course she mustn't give that away. Why, Mr. Grimm would search the grounds and he would find it. "Well," said Mr. Grimm, "I'm asking you a question. When I ask questions, I expect them to be answered." Still no reply from any of the three. Mr. Grimm leaned forward. "Shall I tell you how you came?" You must have friends here among the Brownies, and they must have helped you to climb the wall, and they must have told you to take the toys. Aha! Don't you try to say that you didn't do that." They didn't say a word. Mr. Grimm got up and put the toys back in the chest. "You," he said to Pixie, "you are a pixie, and I don't usually take pixies into my school. But you are a very naughty pixie, I can see, and I shall keep you here. And I shall keep these two as well. I'm not sure what they are, but even if they are real proper children, which I very much doubt, they deserve to be punished for being my pupils here for a term." "Oh, no," said Molly in horror. "What will our mother say? You can't do that." "We will see," said Mr. Grimm. "Now go downstairs, find the brownie called Winks, and tell him you are to come into class when the bell rings. He will give you books and pencils, and he will tell you where to sit." The three of them had to go downstairs in a row, Mr. Grimm behind them. They were quite frightened, for unless they could manage somehow to get their wishing chair, they would simply have to stay at Mr. Grimm's school. They found Winks and told him quickly what had happened. He was very sorry to hear it. "Oh, bad luck," he said, "very bad luck. Well, come on, I'll get you your books and things. Sit by me in class and I'll try and help you all I can." He took them into a big room and gave them books and pencils. Almost at once a bell rang loudly and all of the Brownies trooped in quickly. Not one of them spoke a word. They took their places quietly and they waited. "Why were you sent here, Winks?" whispered Pixie as they all waited for Mr. Grimm to appear. "Well, I used my grandmother's blue spell, and I turned all of her pigs blue," whispered back Winks. "I was sent here because I put a spell into my father's shoe tongues, and they were rude to him all the way down our street and back," whispered Ho-Ho. "And I was sent because," began another Brownie, when slow and heavy footsteps were heard. In came Mr. Grimm, and he stood at his big desk. "Sit," he said, as if the Brownies were all little dogs, and they sat. "We have 3 new students," said Mr. Grimm. "I regret to say that I caught them stealing, yes, stealing from my storeroom. I will find out who helped them into the school and told them about which toys they came to steal." Now this was very frightening, and Molly didn't even dare to cry. She comforted herself by thinking that the wishing chair was hidden under the bush in the garden, and they would run to it as soon as ever they could. "Now we are going to have mental math," said Mr. Grimm, and a little groan ran around the classroom. "You, what number is left when you take 82 and 64 from 103? He was pointing at poor Peter. Peter went red. "What a silly question. Why, you can't take 82 and 64 from 103. "Just say 650, whispered Winks. "He doesn't know the answer himself." 650, said Peter boldly. Everyone clapped as if he was right. Very good, said Mr. Grimm. Then he pointed to Molly. "How many pips are there in 7 pounds of raspberry jam?" 7 pounds of raspberry jam? Repeated Molly, wondering if she had heard right. Well, say none at all, because your mother only makes raspberry jelly, and she strains all the pips out, whispered Winks. None at all, said Molly. "How do you make that out?" thundered Mr. Grimm in a very frightening voice. "Well, because my mother makes raspberry jelly, and she strains all of the pips out," said Molly. And everyone clapped again. "Silence," said Mr. Grimm. "Now you, Pixie, see that you are very, very careful in your answer. If I take 52 hairs from my beard, how many will there be left?" Pixie stared desperately at the long beard that swept down to the floor. "Well," he began, and then Winks whispered to him. "Say, the rest," he hissed. Well, the rest of the hair will be left," he said. Mr. Grimm suddenly pounded on the desk with his hand. "You, Winks!" he shouted. "I heard you whispering them. You told him the answer, and I believe you told the others the answers too." "Oh, please, sir, I'm so sorry," said Winks. "I just thought I'd help them, as they were so new to our school. I was trying to be good, sir, and helpful, really I was. You're always telling us that, sir." "No excuses," said Mr. Grimm, and he turned to a cupboard behind him. He unlocked it and took out a long, thin stick. "Peter," hissed Pixie. "Peter, do you see what the stick is? It's my wand." Peter stared. Yes, the stick was Pixie's little wand. Oh, if only it had wings now and it could fly right to Pixie, but it didn't have wings. Pixie never took his eyes off it as the class went on and on. "I must get it," he kept saying to himself. "I must get it. But how can I? Oh, if only I had a really good idea." And when we read again next time, it will be chapter 12. Pixie is naughty.